Let's try a blind test to see if you could tell which TV is which before giving you the answer. I'm going to tell you guys that a lot of you guys probably wouldn't even expected this to even be as tight of a race as it is, or as hard fought as it is, or any of that. I'm sure everybody has heard for years Samsung is cartoony garbage and you're just better off not even buying it. Just run to the Sony. Sony's quality can never be questioned. I'm sure you all have probably heard something like that before. And so this video exists to challenge that with actual information that may actually help you with the upgrade and update of today. See, if you're upgrading for today, it's going to be very different from your old Sonys back in 2012 or 2013 or 2015. Sony is very different today than they were back then. And if you haven't figured it out already, at this point I will gladly tell you guys the TV to the left is in fact the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II, and the TV to the right is the Samsung S95F. Did you see that one coming? I know I certainly didn't. I at least expected Sony to have more contrast, but it doesn't. And I'm looking and looking and looking, and I see, again, some examples. Yeah, sure, Sony will have an edge and Sony will look nice. Of course, Sony does a good job in some examples. But even on this demo, which is their demo, Samsung beat the shit out of them mercilessly. There wasn't even time for Samsung to catch, or Sony to catch their breath. The Samsung to the right does so much better with providing deeper, inkier black levels, more consistent, rich, dark tones, that it's just ridiculous. And for anybody wondering, yes, I am on the latest firmware update, and I can tell you that it's just ridiculous. It's a slaughter fest. I mean, the black levels, the contrast control, all of it just really sings wonderfully on a Samsung with a matte finished screen that is known to be a contrast killer. But only in rumor, because every test I ever run shows it has tremendous contrast over even the so-called king, as you are clearly seeing it right here. You seeing this? I mean, it gets to such a point where it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous that Value Electronics sat up there and lied their fucking asses off. That's all I could say to it. I mean, unless it was purely based out of the box. I mean, there's no way you could put effort into the Samsung and not see a tremendous level of picture quality over the Sony. We're not talking small gains. Especially and particularly when we talk about the hues, like now, the green, phenomenal, just phenomenal. The Pantone validation of color is absolutely wonderful because you're seeing it go up against Sony and beat the shit out of it. I mean, there's no nice way to say this, okay? And people that are looking for a nice way because nice feels objective, well, too fucking bad. Sony is getting slaughtered here, and that's with my settings. I mean, I've thrown everything I could to make the Sony look as good as I can make it look. And even still, comes up short. Comes up very short in a lot of examples. Not all. We will go over examples where the Samsung starts coming up short. And then they start looking a little, you know what I mean? They start looking a little weak by comparison. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't happen very often. I'll tell you that right now. Like, as I look at this example, Samsung has the brighter whites. It looks better. It's better balanced. Sony has more detail. That detail is nice. It can be felt. You appreciate it in this opening of this demo. And then when you get to this, it just looks like Samsung is a contrast monster. Like it just, the hair on this man's beard is so visible versus the Sony. And that's wild. And you're looking at things like pimples on faces and things like that. And when you look at these details, it's so close. It's so close in this example. Like, now Samsung's pulling ahead on jewels. And this is really, Samsung is really amazing with micro contrast. Like now, I see every pore in this lady's face on the Samsung. Every pimple on her face. I don't have that on the Sony. I just don't. And this is where, again, Samsung really did their damn thing with clarity. I mean, even though it is not anywhere near as clear as the Samsung S90D for my tests and comparisons, it's beating the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. Now, this example looks nice for the Bravia 8 Mark II. Shadow detail color, that looked amazing there. Again, it's not in every example, but to call this a tie would be dishonest. I'll tell you that right now. I couldn't in good conscience look at what Samsung is producing for picture quality and tell you that they're tying. Not at all. Not at all. The contrast, the realistic color, all of it looks amazing. Now, Sony is more vibrant in this example. They have more vivid color, I should say, and I am not in the vivid mode. Now, I will tell you that the Sony does get tremendously bright in the vivid mode, but you will have to sacrifice a crap ton of accuracy. And I mean a crap ton of accuracy to do it. But in that mode, it gets wildly bright, actually. So if you were worried about brightness, just be okay with sacrificing some details. Which is the other reason why I'm not using vivid mode, because I want it to have the best amount of details it could have. In this example, they both look pretty identical. I couldn't give the edge to either, not in this scene. I mean, and just looking at colors really is what it is. I mean, the colors are amazing on both TVs, but Sony has the edge here for sure. Absolutely have the edge here. When things get really bright, the Samsung, it doesn't go for the most vivid color. That might shock a lot of people to find that out. Definitely shocked me to find that out, because I always assumed that Samsung would go for the most vibrant color all the time. Nope. We got to change the way we're thinking about these TVs, guys. Times have changed, and we need to as well. We can't just stay in the past of what a company achieved in their heyday. You got to look at what they're doing today. I mean, that's just common sense and honest. Again, common sense ain't so common, and honesty isn't something you find very easily. I am well aware. But we owe it to ourselves to do our best to get that. I can tell you the crystal clarity on the Samsung right now, destroying the Sony. Absolutely destroying the Sony. And you're going to go back and forth like this for a minute. Not going to lie, it gets to a point where you're like, damn, this is impressive. So you then got to go to a different demo and be like, all right, let's see something else. And in almost every instance that I could see, Samsung's clarity is just tack sharp for having a matte finish screen. And there'll be people that'll try to rebuttal this and say, oh no, it's not true. Look at that clarity on the Samsung to the right. The S95F is destroying Sony with clarity. It's better processing all day, every day. I'm not joking when I say for Value Electronics to get up there and lie like they lied. I mean, I don't even know why you even tried it. Like, I was going to get the TV, I was going to review it, and I was going to show everybody the truth. I mean, bro, come on. Look at the clarity on the Samsung right now. Like, holy shit, that's sharp. I mean, and it's not over sharpened or anything. It's tack sharp clarity, micro contrast, depth enhancement. All of that picture processing is on Samsung's side. I mean, look at this right now. My eyes are flying to the Samsung more, and I don't even look at the Sony now. Like, I'm trying to force myself to look at Sony, but it just isn't happening as much. It just isn't. Sony has the better yellow in that example, but the more I look at this, the more I'm seeing Samsung have absolutely like next level contrast. And before, you get all the crazies in the comments that get all butthurt. They're like, you're just making Sony look bad on purpose. Bro, please, let's not go there. Let's please not go there, because I'm going to show you what Sony started from, okay? This is the professional mode that RTings tells you to use, and this is how they would have stacked up next to me, okay? They wouldn't have done very well. They wouldn't have done very well at all. I mean, look at their fruit bowl. That's blue as fuck. It looks like a W OLED. I mean, what are they doing? I don't know what the hell they're doing, right? I'll pause right here because this is one of my favorite examples with the stuffed animals, because I can see all the detail of the scruff of the teddy bears in the background. And I'll show you which one in particular I do like to look at. But this is where I started from. I mean, cinema mode. And then we can go over to what I created here. I mean, I also did a workup for vivid mode as well, and that looks absolutely beautiful. I would dare say it has better color than what we have in standard mode. So I'll use this one instead, because I feel like I did good work on vivid as well. I'm not joking. I did everything to give them their best shot. I mean, the Sony looks incredible with the depth and the clarity in this example, but the Samsung does have tremendous detail. But it is falling behind in this example, and that is worth noting. And as you look at it, you can't help but be impressed. Impressed by what Samsung has been able to accomplish, I'm telling you. I mean, because if you look at the Sony, And you look at the clarity of the Samsung, I mean, that shit is, it's tack sharp. I mean, you can see reflections cleaner and clearer, literally. And what I like to do is look at patterns, you know, like as she's drawing on her little board there. I like looking at how they differ. And Sony, they have good color. I'm not taking anything away from Sony in this example. Beautiful color, especially with my settings, gorgeous. But Samsung has that gradational color. Color that gradates really beautifully. I really feel that way. I think it's very nice. And I actually think that the Sony is probably going to do better for this comparison in vivid mode, even though I said I wasn't going to do that because sometimes it's a little soft. I think skin tone wise, they're actually doing a little bit better, but contrast is about the same, give or take, as before. So, I mean, you're going to have to pick your poison, as we say. It's not going to be a slam dunk for the Sony, as you've read and seen online. And again, in this example, you're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, now we're dealing with fruits in a bowl, and Samsung has that real color, like that actual color, like what things look like, actual contrast. And Sony, not so much. Not so much at all. I love the look of these TVs, but I've got to give it to Samsung because they have that warmth of iron, where iron will capture a little bit of yellow light within the blue, and Sony is just blue. And I think that's really one of the things that absolutely screws me up with this whole thing. It's like, if Sony didn't do that, we would have been in a better spot. I'm going to try to recompose so we can get a little bit more center, because I feel like I'm not as center as I want to be. Okay? Samsung's delivering that picture, though. My eyes are running over the Samsung for the realism. But not to take anything away from the Sony. Sony has a gorgeous image as well. It's just like, okay, like if I go backwards, okay, and I go back to where they were showing like the pasta and shit, you're going to see what I'm talking about. And it's only in paused examples. If this fucking thing will ever back up enough and pause the right way. Don't you hate when that shit happens? Come on, give me the right example of the pasta. Oh, give me a moment. All right. You're going to see what I'm talking about. Come on, get to the fucking... I do it again. I absolutely hate rewinding shit. I wish there was just like an auto instant pause button, but... Oh my gosh, I'm just not on it right now. Come on. Fuck, it's so fast. Don't you hate that shit? Oh my gosh. We're going to have to rewind it a couple more frames. Couple more frames. There we go. Finally, we got the fucking pasta. All right. Pay close attention to the pasta, because this example, even though it's a bitch to get to, is worth looking at. And you look at the contrast and you look at the individual noodle strands and how it looks. That's how it would have looked on your plate along with the three-dimensional basil leaf. You look over on the Sony and it's just more flat by comparison. And that's not how pasta would have ever have looked on my plate. It just would not have looked like that. I've eaten tons of plates of pasta, and so have you. And we can see what it would look like. And Samsung all day has the true-to-life representation. We're talking about a $3,499 55-inch television with the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II launch price, okay? On sale, $2,200. And we're talking $2,400, $2,500 for the S95F? I mean, I want to be current, right? And see what our actual right now prices are. So I'm actually going to look it up, because I want to see what we've got going on. Okay, so let's see Samsung S95F. I want to see what the prices are right now for the S95F. Okay. And right now, let's go to a 55-inch. And I'm doing all this in real time. Yeah, right now it's $2,100. So they are literally the exact same price. Right now on Amazon, you can find it for $2197.99, all right, for the 55-inch. So they're both about the same price, $2,200, round up, okay? For the same price point, I've got to give it to Samsung. I have to. For, if no other reason, the fact they have crystal clear quality, excellent shadow detail. Sony's color is beautiful in this example. Don't get me wrong, gorgeous color. Sony's rocking it with the color now in this example, for sure. You can't deny them. The skin tone's way better in this example. As things get lower light, this is looking way better on the Sony now. But it's not consistent, is my thing. In an instant like this, it'll look amazing for the lower light stuff where you have a lot of contrast, and I don't know what the programming is, but then you look, it's also black crushing. Because I can see instances where Sony is lacking that shadow detail, and I can see more of the audience, more of the water in the background. I didn't even know there was water happening on the Sony. You know what I mean? Like, it gets to the point where Sony is just crushing. If you want a good image on the Sony, you're going to crush out your black levels a bit. And I don't like that. I want all the shadow detail like I have on the Samsung to feel that scene more impactfully. Don't get me wrong, I love the skin tones of the Sony, and if Samsung could imitate that to that effect, I would be happier with that. But again, you don't always get everything on every TV. That's also a part of this, and we have to look at it for what it is. Now, to be fair, I mean, Sony, again, not to take anything away from them, they have certain things that they are good at. And you're seeing skin tones look great. But at the same time, if you look at the Samsung, you have a certain level of crystal clarity and tack sharp beauty that you just don't have on the Sony. The Sony is just doing a little worse. Just a little bit. For this particular demo. They are edging out Samsung though. I'll tell you, like that beautiful blue right there. I mean, there are moments like now, they're edging them out. Again, this is with my settings. If you were to go out of the box, I mean, we'll show the out of the box between both of them to see out of the box who's the winner, but you're gonna need to dial in the Sony. And I'm not the only one that understands that. A lot of people feel that way as well, where they feel like they're always grabbing for the damn remote with the damn Sony. And that's really the feeling of the Sony, if I'm being honest. It's just always grabbing for the remote. Samsung's doing their damn thing, though. They are with the clarity, for sure. Because I see every little leaf back there on those trees. That Sony is just a little bit more blurry by comparison. So that's one thing to think of. Let's look at grass, okay? I think this is one of the most under-discussed topics. Sony has been applauded for many years as being this super gorgeous, beautiful TV with natural grass, especially for sports. That is not the case, okay? That has not been the case for a while now, and you are going to see that. Now, they have better yellows for sure, better golden yellows, looks great, and that's why skin tones look a lot better in some instances, but I'll tell you this right now. When you start looking at grass, you're actually missing colors. You can clearly see the particular color you're missing is brown, the mud color. And then look at the contrast differences in this example and how soft the Sony looks compared to the Samsung as that scoreboard pulled up, as the soccer players are running on the screen. I mean, you can clearly see there are more patterns on the grass on the Samsung, and on the Sony, they are just missing. And they are really soft to the eye when you look at it. And this is Sony's demo. And they're missing the intricacies that you're supposed to be having. You go look at how tight each player looks side by side, how sharp the net is as they're scoring their goals. I mean, these are the kinds of things that when you're paying $2,100, $2,200, right? You don't want to be getting screwed over and getting some bullshit, if I'm being frank, where you're not getting what you thought a Sony was going to give you. And I'm not going to lie, I thought Sony was way better than this. Not going to lie. Can't lie about that. You got to be honest about these kinds of things. I thought Sony was like in a class of its own when it comes to certain things, and not always. Not always. In this demo, Sony has some pretty good color, though, I'll tell you that. They're coming up, they're looking better. So again, it's not every example where Sony looks bad. Now they're edging out the Samsung. Beautiful. This is what we want to see. Honestly, I think there shouldn't be a single example where the Samsung wins, if I'm being completely honest, given the astronomical price point it started off asking for. But fair is fair, and Sony in this example is beating Samsung now. Again, these are with my settings. We will look at out of the box, but I don't know. I find myself really disenchanted by what Sony is offering this year because I find it to be very tongue-in-cheek. It's the kind of thing that leaves a sour taste in your mouth because you know that like they aren't anywhere near as grand as they are trying to pretend they are when they ask for so much more money than their competitors. But it's a beautiful picture though. And I think if we're being fair with Sony, while yes, in a lot of examples it's a slaughter fest, and you know, in many examples, I'm not even going to sugarcoat that, it will be an absolute slaughter fest. Not all, right? Not every example Sony is going to be helpless. I mean, you got to give them some credit too, right? Again, I think the best mode for the Sony this year is Vivid. As you're clearly seeing, the color pops way more and things just come to life a lot better. The mountains look better. I mean, everything looks better in Vivid mode. If you try to use a mode that has more details, you're just going to lose a lot of picture quality doing that. You just are. But that being said, they'll never have the same level of warmth as the Samsung, and that's going to be a problem. You can deny that all you want and say that the bluer color picture is because of whatever reason. But when you really investigate it, right? We'll pause right here. Go back. I hate this. I hate having to rewind. I wish there was a more efficient way to do this. You know, where I could just recall shit faster. Okay. So as you look, you can clearly see the sunlight reflecting to the right on the Samsung S95F, the Bravia 8 Mark II. It ain't doing it, as you clearly see. It's just blue. And that's the thing that I think is going to screw up a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be looking for that warmth that the Samsung has on these occasions where there's direct sunlight, you know? And you're going to be kind of disappointed, like, well, what the hell, Sony? Like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? What are you actually doing? Now, in full transparency, the Samsung looked like absolute horseshit out of the box. Like, one of the worst TVs I've ever seen. With contrast, that was fucking laughable. And it's actually hard to believe that Sony could do so poorly in an example like now, but neither looks great in this example, if I'm being honest with you. Sony is dimming things, but they are over-exaggerating the skin tone, making her look a bit on the red side. And Samsung is over-brightening everything and making her look a bit on the white side. And this is where you're going to have problems on either display you get. And this is where, again, enter the second conversational piece. It's like, you're hearing how great these TVs are, but no one tells you what you're actually going to expect when you get to some challenging scenes like this with a lot of geometry. And I think that's something that needs to be brought to the forefront. Because, again, I guarantee you a lot of people aren't bringing this shit up. They just aren't. They just aren't. I haven't seen anyone really talk about this issue. I mean, look. Pause right here. One's more reddish, one's more white. I mean, this is processing all day and the difference that companies choose. I mean, it gets to be irritating after a while because you wish there was just like a universal way of doing things that just made sense. Sony's edging out the Samsung here and the fruit. Samsung's edging out Sony here with the car door. You see what I mean? Like, I hate when TVs trade. It feels bipolar, if I'm being honest with you. It really does. Samsung with the contrast, though, that shit's ridiculous. Making Sony look like a joke in that example. It just, I don't know. It puts a bad taste in the mouth, like I said. If you are sitting here trying to find an actual winner and you go back and forth between a multitude of content pieces, I mean, that's kind of what you're going to have to do, isn't it? Because if you look, now Sony is the warmer of these two TVs. But the gravel's still blue. But the dog looks good because they have better yellow control. So, I mean, it's hard, guys. It's not great. I'm not going to lie. 2025. The highlights, though, on that dog looks great. And on that one, highlights are coming through amazingly well on the Samsung. Like, that's the one thing I can give them. But that highlight detail does tend to get a little bit more challenging and diluted. The brighter it gets, it don't do it any favors. And to show you what I'm talking about, I'll just pause on a scene like this. Maybe let the dogs come a little bit more in focus, like that. All right, that's good enough. I'm going to show you what these TVs both look like out of the box. Okay, so the Sony is in the professional mode. You can also use cinema mode if you want a little extra brightness. We could do movie mode on the Samsung, but that would be way too bright to compete. So for all intents and purposes, in the interest of fairness, we're just going to put them in their most professional mode, and they are at their default, okay? So professional on the Sony, and Samsung is in filmmaker mode. And if you review them like this, okay, we'll just go ahead and hit play. Like the rest of YouTube, Sony easily wins. I mean, easily. It has better contrast, better isolation, better clarity, better kind of everything that matters in the picture out of the box anyway, when we're talking about, again, you know, contrast and color. But the brightness still goes to the Samsung to a significant degree. And this is why I tell you, you can't be lazy when you're a reviewer because you're not going to see everything. You're just not. We'll pause right here, okay? Or try to pause when they're playing. All right? Right about there. That's good enough. I don't care if he's a little blurry. I mean, you see the amount of contrast that Sony has over the Samsung in this example. Now we're going to switch back to when you actually try to put in settings to take advantage of the Samsung and see how that changes things. And there you have it. The Samsung, well, again, not perfect at all, isn't losing to the degree that it was. It's now got some contrast advantages here and there. But again, in vivid mode with my settings, the Sony does still pull ahead in that kind of look, the contrasty look for this example, for sure. But Samsung now with that dog here. And that's what I mean, like, With contrast, it's weird with these TVs. Highlights are playing a role with that separation, and I mean the enhanced yellows on the Sony look better than the Samsung. I mean, you're getting to such a point where it becomes very, very irritating. Given again the price point of these two TVs, you'd want there to be a middle ground where they both are just performing really good. I mean, I could not tell you that they tie. Sony has a lot of issues. And I notice a lot more issues on the Sony than on the Samsung, if I'm being completely transparent. Mainly, the downgrades. We've talked about the downgrades. If you want a full breakdown of that, I'm sure they'll pop up in my review. But the warm tones, like when you get into places where you're supposed to have warmth, you just don't have them on the Sony, no matter what you do. Like, pause right here. Look at this counter right now. Look at this kitchen right now. You're supposed to have the warmth that the Samsung is giving you on the Sony, and you just don't, and it is not capable of it no matter what you do. And at first you might think, oh, well, it's not really that big a deal, but that shit is going to get on your nerves because you're just going to always feel like something is off. And then you are going to grab for your remote and try to fix it yourself. And it's just never going to happen. Also, the pattern of that cat back there wasn't really great either. I mean, pause right here. Look at the contrast differences between these two. The Samsung is crystal clear with a ton of detail. I see, that's a 3D dog coming out at me. The Sony is more flat by comparison. You see what I mean? Like, this is the bullshit of it all. And now, let's try to give it its more detailed mode, right? Because vivid is just going to give you the better color and brightness, but detail, not so much. You go in its more vivid mode, or the more detailed mode on standard, and now look. Now they look closer. Samsung still has the advantage with the warm tones and looking like a more true-to-life dog, but the detail now is better. So the thing that I would say about the Samsung, why I would say the winner of this comparison would be Samsung, is because they have the ability to give you warmth, clarity, black levels when it matters. Sony doesn't do that. You have to go between presets, and you'll either get, good detail and good color, but miss the brightness, or you'll get good brightness and color and miss the detail. It's not consistent. And when it's not consistent for the exact same price as a TV that's performing more consistently, that is a problem. It just undeniably, without a shadow of a doubt, that is a problem, because we're not buying TVs because we want the inconsistencies. We're buying TVs because we want to see a holy shit moment. We want to be knocked on the floor with the picture quality. I mean, but if you look at these two TVs side by side, and you know what I mean, you don't know what you're looking at off rip, and you're just watching a YouTube video and you're going to be told, hey, pick out the Sony, I'd wager a guess it'd be pretty difficult, like at the beginning of the video. It's not exactly a slam dunk kind of thing. Again, both TVs have their strengths and weaknesses. Of course, everybody will tell you that. But Samsung has more clarity. And that brightness lift is just glorious, honestly. It's gorgeous. Look at the colors right here on the Samsung. They're beautiful. Every bit as beautiful as what you have on the Sony. I mean, sharper detail now on the Samsung, better color on the Sony. You see what I mean? And when it's like that, it's like, I don't know what to say about that. I really don't. Sony, again, a little bit more red in this example. Samsung has the proper color. You're going to go back and forth as much as you want, and I promise you this result will literally never change. And then we get into other things that I've noticed, like with the user interface. The Sony tends to freeze and lag from time to time, especially if you're doing calibrations and you're going back and forth into the menu a whole lot. The Sony has moments where the menu just sticks. I've never run into that on the Samsung. That's important to note because they're the same price. You factor that in with the just generally extremely high HDR bright or SDR brightness on the Sony or on the Samsung versus the Sony. It's hard. Because listen, Sony has good contrast moments like now. And like now, the Samsung pulls ahead, but Sony has color details. You see what I mean? Like, it's shitty. I think that it's bullshit that TV manufacturers have such a varying degree of picture quality to this point of like total inconsistency. That's the only thing I could say about this comparison is it's totally inconsistent. And it will make any presenter sound totally bipolar going from scene to scene. Now the Samsung looks better. The grass is just coming at me three-dimensionally. And now the Sony looks better. And now the Samsung. You see what I mean? It's trading too much. Now the Samsung looks way better. Loads of contrast. It's fucking ridiculous now. Going up against the Sony. And this is the part where people try to tell you, like, oh, Samsung, they struggle with processing of low bitrate content. Into the next part of what I'm about to say to you. Everything you're watching right now is on a USB flash drive. It don't get any more low bit rate than compressed video on a USB thumb drive. I mean, that's processing testing 101. And you're seeing Samsung and Sony go toe to toe. And you tell me who looks like they have more of the edge, and I would tell you. And a lot of these scenes, they just look very fucking similar, if I'm going to be honest, with this bright, colorful stuff. Samsung has the edge when we talk about contrast, though. I could see the lines better. And of course, that's why you look at the geometrical lines to find the contrast differences. Like now, Samsung's killing Sony with that. And enter the next part. Is Sony's processing really worth the markup? No. I don't have to hesitate with that. I don't have to think about that. I don't have to guess about that. Because again, they can't do warm tones as accurately as the Samsung can. And you're going to see that in this demo. They just can't. They get vivid colors, don't get me wrong. But warm, like now, it's supposed to be warm, and it's not. And every example where Samsung is supposed to, or Sony is supposed to have that warmth, they just don't. And it will get tiring for a lot of people. I'm not going to lie, especially given the price point, and you're going to say, what the fuck? Samsung now for the Fire, more vibrant. Way more vibrant. Looking like real fire. I mean, I don't know, guys. It's one of those things where they're both good TVs, but I find consistency to be important. And again, I would give the win to the Samsung because of the consistency of the picture quality. Sony is just not doing that consistently enough. They have great moments, is what I'll say about the Sony. They have great moments where they look tremendously beautiful, amazing, exceptional, and then the next scene hits and then Samsung takes them out. I mean, without even trying. And then you'll get to another. It's like Sony wins and then they lose. And then they win and they win and then they lose and they lose and then they lose and then they lose and then they win. And then they lose and then they win. And then they lose and then they lose. And it's not consistent. You know what I mean? There's not like a moment where the price is justified. I just have to say that out loud. I think everybody knows that. I mean, look at this room right now that they're in. I mean, the walls are supposed to be this nice warm color and they're not on the Sony. They're just this blue looking color. Sony finds creative ways to make everything look really blue. And they need to get off that because it's really destroying their TV's chance at being the champion that people think that it is. And I think that's very sad. We'll put up a more contrasty example to show some contrast differences. This Aquos demo is pretty badass for that. And see if we can't see anything different. But, I mean, I would say as far as colors go, I would say color-wise they trade off too much to really, you know what I mean? Like down the line, Sony has beautiful blues and yellows. Very gorgeous, those two colors. Reds, blues, and yellows I found on the Sony to be just tremendous. But then certain colors like purples and greens look like shit. Contrast-wise, Samsung is slaughtering Sony. But Sony has the cyan advantage in this. And you get to this weird little point where you're going back and forth too much. And that's what I would really say. But not enough to tie. That's the fucked up part. You're going back and forth a lot, but not enough to tie. Because Sony favors softer image quality, more blurry image quality, and Samsung is just more tack sharp, if I'm being very honest with you. Now, I would say, again, this is a picture quality comparison. This isn't a gaming comparison. We will have to do gaming comparisons separately. That is an entirely different conversation. But as far as the picture quality, just assessing raw picture quality for people who have no intention on doing any gaming, any PC gaming, we're just going to assess it like this. I would say you probably would be better off with the Samsung S95F. And the reason being is because they consistently give you warm tones and contrast where Sony makes you pick depending on the preset you're in. And I think that's a very poor choice. And it's consistently softer than the Samsung is what I would say. It's a very soft image. Now, if you like soft imagery, like for example, if you take a photo and you like it to be more soft, then you're going to love the look of the Sony. But if you like tack sharp photos, you are going to hate the look of the Sony because more consistently, like now, it's just softer than the Samsung. And the contrast isn't as nice. And this is a reoccurring theme constantly. And it will be very draining and vexing if you are expecting some grand flagship experience, especially with the king of OLED and king of TV moniker that Value Electronics slapped on it. And that's as real as anyone's going to tell you. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching the #1 Branded Honesty. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.